Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you a few tips and tricks for how to work with the world's most challenging fabrics. If you want to see how I make this silk velvet and silk organza dress, stick around. I'll link the pattern in the description. Tip number 1 is make sure you have a velvet press board. My particular board has hundreds of little tiny needles on it, so that way when you press your velvet fabric down into it, pile side first, it protects the pile, and when you put your iron on the back of the fabric, your pile won't get damaged in the process. This is how you can iron silk velvet without ruining it. Tip number 2, temporary fabric glue is your new best friend. Fabric glue will prevent your silk velvet from slipping and sliding when you go to sew with your machine. Because of the pile, velvet doesn't want to stay put, but fabric glue will keep it in its place. It dissolves within a day or two, leaving no residue on your fabric at all. To get started working with fabric glue, all you need to do is lay a couple of pieces of paper down on your table just to protect the surface. Put the pattern piece on top, put another piece of paper on top of that, and only expose the seam allowance. From there, spray generously and press your pattern pieces together. Now you're ready to sew. Always remember to clip your curves. This makes a world of difference, especially when working with silk velvet. It's not as straightforward when you go to iron this because you don't have a pressing ham. All you have is your velvet pressing board. So clipping your curve to maintain the shape of the curve is everything. In tip number 4, which isn't necessarily silk velvet related, I'm going to show you how I like to mark my darts. Cut the shape of the dart out of your pattern piece, lay it flat on top of the pattern piece, and grab some tailor's chalk. This is the easiest method for marking your darts. Just draw directly inside of the shape of the cutout dart, and that's it. Pin your darts very thoroughly to make sure that when you go to sew, nothing shifts out of place. Sew your darts together and take your time. They should come out just fine. Tip number 5 is all about notches. Before you spray, make sure that you mark the notches where your pattern pieces are supposed to be joined together. Lay your pattern pieces on top of one another, notch to notch, and this will make sure that your seams are lined up perfectly. Tip number 6 is make sure you give yourself a break. And if your cat wants attention, well, you kind of have no choice. Tip number 7 is all about French seams. I chose to use silk organza for the sleeves of this dress, which is a notoriously difficult fabric because of how delicate it is. In order to finish the seams, you can't just put it through a serger, you need to encapsulate them. Put your pattern pieces together wrong side to wrong side and sew a straight stitch. Iron your seam allowance and clip it just to make sure there's no excess. Press your seam flat and then flip it inside out. Feed it through the machine once more with a straight stitch to completely encapsulate the seam allowance that you created before. This is how you can create the perfect French seam. Due to the delicate nature of silk organza, tip number 8 is all about the continuous lap and using bias binding. Once you've measured the appropriate length that your bias binding should be in order to make your continuous lap, cut your pieces and pin them onto the sleeve. Once pinned, all you need to do is sew a straight stitch and voila, you have a continuous lap. Tip number 9, and in my opinion one of the most important finishing tips, is to make sure you understitch your lining. This will help prevent your lining from rolling up and becoming visible when you wear your garment. And with that, good luck and happy sewing. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you liked it, feel free to like and subscribe. It would mean the world. Catch you in the next one.